How's it going, guys? This is Professor George coming to you from Costa Rica in a lovely hotel room. Making this presentation today, we're talking about Twitter and Facebook, learning some of the basics, talking about case studies, and learning the tools. So let's just jump right in then. In here, we have some of the basics. I do like starting off with some truths about these platforms. So in here, just talking about strategy, and you've heard me talk about this before, and I'll keep going because it's so important that we're understanding that we're beginning with something that basically started with a telephone, right? It's a basic concept that we both can listen and speak to people in a synchronous way. Every other form is just yet another version, if you want to think about it, of a telephone. Oftentimes, though, we only think about what we're broadcasting frequently on these networks, and we forget that there are parts to a telephone, right? And we can be listening, and oftentimes, that the motto of you should be listening twice as much as talking sometimes can really play a role, I think, in how we use these tools and what we're looking to do, creating content, and even studying who we should be talking to. We have a tool, right? And now we have the story, my personal favorite, where we have not only just what we're saying, but we're taking into account who we're saying it to and their worldview. And what do I mean by worldview is what is their perspective, what are their fears, what are their needs, why should they care about what you have to say to them? And when you're thinking about the story, it's not the same on every single platform. It changes depending on where we are and what we're saying. For example, you're not going to want to put the same thing on Facebook that you do on Twitter in the same exact way. It doesn't make sense. For one, on Facebook, we should be posting more of a photo style. And even in the posting of that, you're thinking, well, gosh, using the word like on Facebook, say, please like this if you want to support us, wouldn't make any sense on Twitter. And so there's a lot of times where we think, just by automating this, one post here and it goes out everywhere, this time we have to consider what we're storytelling and how that translates onto the platform. We have these two things. We have the story, what we're saying, and then we've got the tool. The question, a quick poll around, raise your hand if you think that the story, the story is more important than the tool is on. All right, look around. How we doing? Raise your hand if you think the tool actually is more important, right? Like, the fact that we're using Twitter or Facebook is more important to the strategy that, right? I'm talking about the strategy of the group. Throwing up some hands, see what you guys think. And this is my real opinion, and ultimately take away that the story matters so much more than the tool. If you have a great story, if we have great content, right, a fantastic video, it matters. It matters less about the tool that happens to be broadcast across, in the sense that a bad story, it doesn't matter where you say it, nobody's going to want to look at it. Bad content doesn't work. And so, Professor Fizz, if you're in there, right, content is king. We love to say it, but it's absolutely true. And then we think about the platform that we're delivering the story on and how it should be adjusted. And we'll go through those cases. In Metcalfe's law, why the story matters ultimately too is, when we say something, we have to do it with the intent of not just the one person we're talking to. In the case of when we had the first two telephones in the world, and one story going back and forth, you're like, fine, they're going to receive that. But as soon as you build up this network, the number of connections grows at a nonlinear rate, right? It's more of an exponential growth, where all of these connections really turn into what happens when you have a message shared over and over again. And as we're designing stories to be shared, this is the power of a connected network. This concept, which is, I guess a little heady, network latency. And, the latency is a measure of the time delay and experience in the system, the precise definition, blah, 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 right? How long does it take, me say words right now to you, get to your head, to think about it, process it, and then take action? It's the same as thinking about how long it takes to send an email, right? I send an electronic message, it goes up and it transmits over a certain period of time. And if I'm, bouncing across the world and I'm sending this, as I am, from Costa Rica, and it goes to here to here to here, we have to measure the latency of a network. But there's also message latency. And if we're crafting messages that aren't designed to be shared, that aren't particularly as interesting to people, that takes its toll as well. Nobody ends up seeing it. And why this especially matters is when you're thinking about networks like Twitter, right? This potential in here is fantastic to share a message and have it reach, well beyond just the normal rate of, like, okay, so we only have 100 followers. No, you In fact, when you think about this, each person has got a network that looks like this right now. Honestly, you go on and can see these types of networks within just the people that follow us. Where does that bring us? Overall strategy is good to keep in mind. Also, who we're talking to. I mentioned that too when we're thinking about the worldview of who. Now we got to have to, find these people, and I think this is a great exercise for our team to do. And if you're thinking about, what's next, it really define. We have, I would say, 3 groups. You're welcome to discuss further on it, but 3 groups really are, current NYIT students that are both on campus and abroad. Is the I guess with alumni, we're talking about NYSE alumni, of course. And then the third, which has kind of been brought up, is the potential students that we want to understand more about NYIT and specifically, obviously, our department, because we want to help those numbers. But we're thinking about these folks, male, female, demographics, region, all of these elements play into our account for our strategy. Another way to think about and segmenting our audience is, we've got this sort of pyramid. Every organization that you walk into has got this pyramid, and I can walk in and show you where it is. We have people that visit that just kind of like out from afar, walk by, and they're like, all right, this is interesting. Maybe they've watched the video once. You've got this next level of these like members that maybe they've signed up for our email, they follow us on Twitter, they like us on Facebook. Then we have this sort of like chasm and jump into contributors. And you're thinking about the point at which somebody's contributing, and I don't care if it's a comment, if it's a post, if it's a video, right, if it's a Google Minute. Now we've actually crossed a real threshold where they're actually, giving up their time, which is tremendously valuable, and showing this commitment. We want to be treating them, and then the next levels is the evangelists and leaders, the folks in the room right now. You guys are the leaders, obviously. You're the ones that ultimately drive this. But we have to talk to and treat contributors differently. We have to cultivate them. We can't necessarily try to think with the mindset of let's get every visitor to become a contributor. It won't work. It's a pyramid for a reason, but we have to keep in mind how, and like the membership team is perfect when you're thinking about who are the super users, who are the most active alumni. Sure, we've got over 900 alumni on our list, but the way we maybe pick out, I'd rather have 20 super active people that we could go to on a reliable basis, and we can get into whatever those strategies are, but we're considering our audience with the lens that they are not all just, faceless, nameless numbers that we're increasing, though I do love to count them. And finally, another way of looking at segmentation is through like a classic distribution curve. And in this case, I'm showing you a curve that is on a range of technology adoption. And so on the one side, you've got these technologists, and the side, right? These are the people that are lined up for, the iPhone 5, blah, 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 for, days on end to, look at it, right? They can't wait to adopt the new technology. They're right there in line. And then as you move over down into the back, the skeptics or, the people that are lagging behind, you've got grandma with the blinking VCR who's just, not ever going to change what she's doing. She doesn't need an iPhone. And ultimately you can realize that Apple is fine with that. They don't need to sell to the entire market necessarily. They do pretty well selling to a part of it. Another way to think of it is also, Starbucks. It doesn't, and deliberately doesn't, sell to the fat part of the curve. They're fine selling their $5 lattes, and I'm sure somebody in the room has got something from Starbucks right now. They're fine selling that crowd, and they do very well by it. They actually have a separate brand, even Seattle's Best, to talk to and sell to that other part of the meaty part of the curve. And when we think about our content, it's tempting to say, well, what we're producing is for but also female, old people and young people, pretty much U.S., but also the world too. You can't target the world. You can't target everybody, and in fact, you're going to do yourself a disservice too when you think about the fact that some people care and some people don't care. I want to talk to the people within our groups that care, get them on board, and have the rest follow once it's time. But focusing on the content for the people that are really actually our fans, actually would care about it, is definitely where we start. And I think this is a good jumping off point. So talk about some noise. I want to talk about noise in general. there are, tools, and like we could throw in, the Vine to the mix as well now. And every single week there's going to be a new sort of rise of things. The case that I'm going to be making here, I really just want to focus on Facebook and Twitter. We're thinking about what we put into our wagon, and we talked about YouTube. I mean, it's essential for our strategy, but talking about Facebook and Twitter especially. Over time, and this is just, a fact, communication channels get noisier. What do I mean by that? So in this graph, we have, obviously funny blowfish, but over time, we get more and more friends. Tomorrow, next week, next month, you're going to have more friends than you have today. And what that ultimately means across every platform is that there's more noise. Signal to noise is, if all of your friends are now posting, the chance that someone's going to see this one little tiny post from NYT is decreasing. And all the markets feel this, and it's simply a fact to consider. Again, why we have to be thinking from the mindset of how do we add value to our story for these people that are watching it, because it's noisy, right? We have to be honest, we're competing with a lot of other things out there. And this is why I love this original book by Seth Godin, really, really sharp guy, author, marketing guru. And this book came out in early 2000s, so it's still pretty young, but permission marketing is basically this idea that you need ultimately to be tracking and focusing on one thing. How many people do you have the permission to talk to? And this is not like stealing addresses or doing backyard tactics. How many people actually want to hear from you? And we can just start by thinking about email from this perspective. How many people actually want to open our email or even sign up to get an email from us? How many people want to, interact with us on Facebook? And this is right at the heart of the organization, because the higher that number is, the more people we can build around content that we post and are interested in it, the stronger we ultimately become. The more value we can bring our community and reaching those goals that we've set for ourselves. And I add in here, I think if you rewrote it today, it would be earned and re-earned, because especially when you think, and we'll talk about this on Facebook, because somebody likes you doesn't mean they're getting every one of your messages. In fact, the case is quite contrary. The chances that they see it are very, very slim, and that's the talking about us number. Tactics work, and I mentioned that, with the asterisk for now. So we do talk about tactics, but tactics aren't the strategy. The strategy is the overall holistic look at how do we treat this platform based on who we're talking to and what we're saying. And so I'm going to skip that, but I do like to think of, not getting lost. And in not getting lost, we're using goals as our compass and thinking about, well, we know we do care about getting to a base number of likes and follows. We do also care about the interaction on this platform, those trust elements that we're tracking right now. But we can say, what really matters is content that is engaging, and what do we measure as a result of it. So we can always use that as a guidepost, I'd say. Let's jump into Twitter right now. I'm going to take a quick drink. Here's our checklist. Right, so look who is managing it. We talked about that a little. I saw the emails going around. It's fantastic. The content, what are they saying? In fact, around what they say, what are we saying as a result of it in marketing? How do people get there? Is it on our newsletter? Is it on our printed materials? Is it in the base of all of our email chains at this point? If you are actually employees of a company, I would expect it in your signature. Find me on Globesville. And measurement, how are people using it? And I am all about the measurement. Twitter, what is different here? Again, we have the story. But on Twitter, it's especially different because we're talking about flow. And the same story, right, that we have. So let's say we're talking about our soccer game. It's not a single tweet in this case. You wouldn't say, hey, and we won, 3-0. In fact, you can tease out the story much longer. You can talk about, tweets around the training, about potential injuries. You can talk, hey, did we realize that this other school's got a long-standing rivalry, or the history of the rivalry, or how many times they've played. And there's so many different ways that you can tease out a story and think about the different posts that surround an idea. The tolerance for the number of tweets is a lot higher than we realize. I mean, it's not even crazy to say like anywhere from 5 to 10 tweets a day are too much. Ultimately, what, we have this conversation, someone in the room is thinking, gosh, I hate it when somebody, is tweeting too much. And that's, again, a sample size of one. That's one person's opinion. We look at the data at large to say, you know what, when we posted 10 times, we actually got 10 followers, 3 people left us, but we netted positive. And as long as we feel, the asterisk on that, I suppose, would be as long as we feel that we're not losing the important people, which I'd argue we aren't. If they care about us, they want to hear from us and interact with us, that's entirely fine. Hashtags. I think you are all probably pretty savvy at this point on hashtags, but it is the fundamental component, I'd say, why Twitter ultimately succeeded organizing large amounts of conversations by topic and making sure that we're using hashtags to our advantage is important. Being consistent if we're going to be talking about Globesville to do hashtag Globesville, but really hashtags also allow you to kind of jump into other conversation flows. So hashtag NYIT is a fantastic one to consider because that's ultimately the pulse of what people are tweeting around campus. And if we can enter that dialogue in a not sort of like, hey, look at me, I'm over here, but in a constructive, additive way, I think this is a good way of beginning to say, all right, what are like 5 hashtags that are particularly important to our audience so that we can join that conversation and listen, respond, interact, and have these conversations. So you don't necessarily have to just be coming up with content out of the ether, right? Like, oh gosh, what are we posting today? You can actually look online and say, hey, there's a conversation going on right now about this upcoming soccer game. We should be involved, or even tweeting around it, or sending in last year's highlights, whatever it may be. Becoming more relevant to the community through these conversations. There's so much really that can be done, and I think it's a great use of our time as well to be joining these conversations. Next up here, these are handles. We can talk to other organizations. We can talk to companies. We can talk to celebrities. You can, bid Obama if you want. Sometimes it's probably more likely than others that you're going to get retweeted or a response. But we can actually be thinking about who are the key influencers in our, target markets. Who are some more active alumni, who are some more active students, maybe people on sports teams or whatnot that we can be interacting with. And small things when we begin to interact with people in the community will ultimately build that trust and get the right followers to be coming to Globesville to understand that we are this resource. And it's a bit of hustle. So again, tremendous opportunity to be looking through and thinking about who we're talking to more specifically. I've got also a tool I'll be rolling out for Globesville that will offer us some deeper insight and analysis into who's following us and how. So scheduling, we talked about Hootsuite. Brilliant. We have to use it for scheduling here because we can't expect us to be on 24/7 all the time. We can have high periods where we're in there constantly interacting, and then we can schedule out. And it's really important that we schedule out, I think, at least a tweet a day to show that there is constantly activity and interaction available through us. And search. Ultimately, this is really how people find those conversations I talked about, and we can also as well use the basic Twitter search, look around for topics, see what's going on, and then join the conversation based on those hashtags. For example, if we wanted to talk to women in business, Forbes Women would be a brilliant one to be tweeting at, and you can see that we can talk about. I guess daycare is not entirely relevant here, but whatever they're talking about, you can deal with those issues. All right, Danzarella, really smart at HubSpot and has done great analysis with regard to Twitter, I think, and basic tactics here. We're talking about getting more retweets, right? Which I mentioned is when somebody literally just presses the retweet button, and we get that amplification network effect, right? We want people to retweet. This is something that makes sure we can reach more than just the 100 people that follow us. They can go then to their audiences as well. So number one here is link is much more likely that it's over 2x that if you have a link in it that somebody's going to retweet you. And it doesn't have to necessarily just be a link to our site. It can be a link to something else. That's a resource we think for the community. Again, thinking of it from the perspective of adding value. Literally asking for retweets in the tweet, believe it or not, actually works. And the full written please retweet, you can't use it all the time, of course, right? Tactics work once or not overused. But this will actually, for some of our more important messages, really work to get more retweets. People will literally respond because you asked them. I know. It's funny. Stop talking about yourself. Good rules, I think of thumb in general, but especially on Twitter. Nobody really wants to say, retweeting the fact that you're saying Globesville is super awesome and we, did this, we did that. It's, just not going to get as much amplification. Saying new things, like literally news things, right? Things that are breaking, things that are new. And I think we're very much in this mindset and wheelhouse for the content we create, but thinking of it from like, this is what people do amplify and reward on the platform. And this is just funny, tweeting about Twitter in general and reports on Twitter, whatever it may be, will get more relevance because people are obviously on Twitter and they may be more curious and apt to retweet them. Let's talk about photos. Huge part here. Here's just a quick strategy that we may want to consider is people sending in photos. So in this case, people can email in photos at a certain domain. We can map that to a mailbox or Flickr account, keep that private. In that Flickr account, what it is doing when people email it is we can aggregate a bunch of photos together so that the content team can then repurpose them Facebook for Twitter later, and then just aggregate it. So I think it's probably a bit more streamlined way of finding a way of not just, oh, we emailed it here, or no, I posted that already. If there's an event, we can tell other people to email in their photos of games and whatnot so that we can even put it into videos if you want. You can do the classic Ken Burns effect, sliding images slowly across with a narration. Here's an example we did with DoSomething.org, and we had teens from across the country raising jeans in their local neighborhoods for homeless teenagers across the U.S. And we were able to aggregate tons and tons and tons of these pictures. And we said, please send in your pictures. Ultimately, that's what you were looking at here. Tons of these great images came back. We kept them private so that we could just choose the best ones and put those out to the network. And then you can feed those in. So let's say you did trust maybe our team to be sending in photos. They could then automatically turn into tweets, though. I don't know if that's the best way to do it, but I think Pretty Water does a fantastic job of automatically programming in using Hootsuite these photos of the day. So that may be one idea, photos of the community where it's just general shots of NYT's campus and life, and we can get these shots. We know how to do it. Literally, Dawn, come on. You can walk around campus right now, take a bunch of photos, and we can schedule them out for a period of time, and it's a great way of reminding people that we're on campus, we're here, we're constantly involved in the community. Videos, we talked about Vine, I think the other day. It's an interesting platform, but it's not necessarily for like the news content we're trying to do. But I think it's something good for us to experiment with and park Globesville and see what the possibility is there. But you can't do very much reporting on a 6-second video, though. It might be a funny challenge for us to try some experience there. And it's a looping video. I'm not going to play it, but this was a funny clip because it's 6 seconds where Jimmy Fallon is saying, and the meaning of life when I was talking to the Dalai Lama is, and it just keeps looping through, and it's just kind of funny. You can play around with different ideas that keep in the mind that you're going to be on a loop. All right, those are tips, tactics. Let's talk about Facebook. Here we go. Does it look good? Right, we're changing our profile header so that it's kind of up to date at least with the season. Who is managing it, making sure we know who the quarterback is that is going to be on there most of the time. But it doesn't mean we can't have other people as well posting things, as long as we make sure that we're not kind of stepping over each other and reposting the same types of things. Content, what are they saying? What are we saying? How do people get there? Again, we mentioned this. If it's for a company, I'd be making sure that in our email signatures, we said, follow us here, find us here. And we're putting in our Facebook URL into those things. And then ultimately, how are we measuring it? And that's Twitter. Unlike Twitter, Facebook, I think, has a very robust insight. Twitter's analytics are still, I'm very frustrated. They're still really just for ads, and they have it, but it's not. I'm not that happy with it. I have another analytic we can use, but Facebook's insights are very powerful and give you everything I think you really need to know. Here's an example of how, do something changed this top header based on every single campaign they're running to highlight it down here. Then you see the photos, the likes. We can customize the blocks that go down there, so we can put other interactive elements, polls if we wanted to, just have that section for it. So it's pretty flexible for that. We could, insert, and I think we could do this, a YouTube channel into one of these things, so people on Facebook can immediately jump into YouTube. So is if you didn't need more things to do, or even the team, integrating some of the YouTube content directly into Facebook and not expecting people to keep off the platform. You have to respect the medium, and if we can keep the experience in there, I think it's a great opportunity. Looking at some Facebook insights, they recently changed it, but ultimately it's likes, and then it show you other nonsense things like friends of fans. People talking about this is my personal favorite. Weekly reach, useless. Total subscribes is the total number of people that have recently liked you. Also important if we're thinking about we're in a growth tactic, but the one to keep an eye on is really the people talking about this, because if people talking about this is like, comment, follow, and if they aren't interacting with our content, nobody is going to see it. They literally do not see it. The friends and fans is designed to, and the weekly reach are more of these fluff numbers. They're aggregated based on total, necessarily the weekly reach is impressions, which is useless because someone can scroll by in 2 seconds and not really read it. And the friends and fans are just whoop-de-doo. We have a network effect, and that's what happens, right? You, on average, in this room, everyone for millennials, it says about 540 friends on average. People that are over 50 have on average about 250 friends or so, according to a Pew Internet research study. But big picture is young people have more friends on Facebook at about 2x. So I just talked through these elements. I don't know if there's anything necessarily to add to it. So the up and down I think is important. You can look at have we increased by what X%? You can get a quick glance at, okay, we're increasing, this is good, or we're decreasing, this is bad. Maybe we're posting poor content. The people talking about this fluctuates wildly today, so it's hard really to track that. So, the method is, how do we make sure we always get this number, and kind of like taking a quick thermometer check. So that's the current approach I like to use, though we may be evolving it. Moving along to this. All right, so here is one of my favorite examples. After this elephant was injured by a landmine, veterinarians gave him a new lease on life with a prosthetic leg. Like this, if it made you smile. This particular post got over 500,000 likes, 18,000 shares, and 8,000 comments. So tremendous, a tremendous amount of interaction. And you realize that it's far more likes than Do Something actually had at the time, which was about 250,000. Image is why that succeeded. And I don't know if you just heard that, but in the room, buddy just went, "Aw," and you should. I mean, this is a very touching thing where this elephant has been given a prosthetic leg because it stepped on a landmine and can actually live and have a chance at a happy elephant life, whatever that entails. The power here is really the image, but also this statement that was in that text added significantly to the virality, ultimately, of the post. Like this, if it made you smile. Remember when we were talking about the number one way, some of the ways, tactics to get retweets? Literally ask people to do the thing you want. We move very quickly. We think with our, we have two systems that oversimplify to explain this, two systems that control all of our decision making. System 1 and system 2, right? So the fast thinking, that is the immediate reaction, do I want this? Do I want a coffee? Do I want, to go out the door today? Do I want to yes, do I want to sit down? Yeah, sure, that's fine. And it just makes these quick decisions. System 2 is where, if I say, what is the capital of, Francisco? You'd think for capital of California. You'd think for a little while, or if I asked, what is 51 divided by 25, you'd be like, oh gosh, I don't know. Okay, you're thinking in a more long-term planning approach. So we're teasing out and taking advantage of the system 1 lazy thinking that says, hey, like this, sure, I'll like this, make me smile. Because what does it mean if you didn't like this image? Right? You're a terrible human being. Come on, how do you not like this? With a quick value proposition strategy, getting those interactions. Tagging crowds is very, very effective in this case. I'm just still on that Teens for Genes example where we posted here to Facebook this picture with a wonderful work these kids did, but you can tag each individual person. This is a really great strategy when we're at an event and thinking about using all of the whole whale, really, the whole idea of, well, we're going to take this video, or also we have an opportunity to interact with everyone here. Can we take a picture of everything going on, being the main people, putting it on Facebook, and suddenly they're now, attached to Globesville's reporting in a very, very meaningful way because, the photo alert goes to them and then they can go in and see like, hey, what's the picture? I mean, I think everyone in the room is probably guilty of this, of like, hey, there's a new photo that has been tagged of you. And, the immediate thought is, oh, God, what did I do last night? But in this case, it's positive. We're reporting on great things that the NYC community is doing, but we can tag them, especially when we begin to interact with them. Let's go into EdgeRank now, because this is something we talked about when we were getting into the newsfeed. But what is EdgeRank? It's first off, it's the algorithm used by Facebook to determine when and what posts get on the individual news feed, and that's that's the main feed you see when you log into Facebook. It's the holy grail of what you have to be trying to land on. It's done by these three variables: affinity, weight, and time decay. But that's kind of gibberish. So what does this really mean? We're talking about it's factoring in these elements of what were your previous interactions with this page in the past. Were they positive? Are they frequent? What are the reactions now? Also, the previously with what you've been posting. So this interaction, right? All it's talking about is people talking about us. How many people are liking, commenting, sharing what we're posting? Reactions from the users who already saw the post. So the more Facebook users engage with the post, the more likely it is they see it. And even later in the day, if they are thinking about, if somebody interacts with your page in the morning, it's more likely that later in the day, if you made another post, that it'll again show up. They're like, oh, what the algorithm is doing is it wants to keep people on the platform, so it's trying to put content in front of them that they know they interact with. So it's more likely that it'll keep showing up once in the feed, and you can kind of get this sort of snowball rolling. And the detractors, like the amount of negative complaints. The put, if people don't like it, you're not going to Facebook's not going to share it. So here's a funny example using Batman. Down there to the side, you can see Batman being awesome, killing a shark with a lightsaber. Super sweet guy. But here's the chances breakdown for Robin. And the chances that Batman post is going to be seen by Robin. One, it's great, I think, ultimately that we have a Facebook photo in here. Those will, every single time, outpace just regular text, regular links for interactions on the platform. Facebook is the #1 photo sharing site actually at this point for the amount being posted and for previously stored images. Now it's incredible, and I'd say 70% of our posts easily should be accompanied with a photo when and if possible. So Robin, we've got this extra bump here of the fact that he frequently interacts with Batman's posts. He's engaged the most with photos and sometimes links. And Batman's post has more engagement than usual, right? So it's already a popular post as determined by other people, which is a great indicator. And there's no negative feedback. It's posted recently. So the likelihood of Batman killing the shark with a lightsaber is very, very, very high that he's going to show up in Robin's feed. Now, looking at the detractors, what might not happen. So there's another post where Batman is posting a regular comment, nothing, no link, anything out there. And so now it's what are the chances that Joker's going to see it? And you break down, right? It's occasionally interacts with Batman's posts. Okay, so it's not that frequently comments on messages. So Joker does like to, interact a little bit, but particular, and this is important for number 3, Batman's post. This post has really less engagement than normal, right? There's not as many people liking it. So Facebook's like, oh, well, this is not as interesting or engaging a post, so we're not going to put it in front of them because it doesn't make sense. And then you kind of get where this is going as we talk about Bane. So it actually works, with regard to this algorithm getting people to spend more time on the platform and ultimately click more ads, which makes Mark Zuckerberg more, mountains of money. fantastic, all well and good. You can see the increase here is was substantial. That all of the Facebook time spent was on the newsfeed is now up to 40%. And so the algorithm is working, and they keep modifying it. So it's always going to, I think, follow the same sort of logical path of putting relevant content in front of people, though some of the recent changes have made it, I think, a bit more difficult for smaller organizations to get into the newsfeed. So it just means we have to hustle a little bit more, and you also now understand even more so why we need our own people to engage, right? Because it increases the odds that the rest of the likes on Facebook are going to be the rest of the people, right, that like us on Facebook are going to see a post if we're able, for strategic reasons, have everybody comment or like the page at the same, like a post at the same time. So that's sort of, all working together. We understand literally in the algorithm why that will actually help us. Other elements here, we can post at other pages, so the NYIT page or other major pages to show up in them and create that interaction. You can also use hashtags now on Facebook as well, which I haven't seen really any extra bump from it. So it is not to say that this won't be changing in the future, but it is certainly not the same market as Twitter is really for getting into conversations around it. But we can exploring, obviously, looking at hashtag NYIT or other things to see what the community is talking about and potentially join the conversation. We can schedule posts inside of Facebook, and we should absolutely do this because you want this image hosted on Facebook. It will literally impact, with regard to EdgeRank, it will impact the number of people that will ultimately see the post because Facebook wants to promote things that are inherently on Facebook and not hosted elsewhere. So they'll actually give you an extra little bump for having the image posted there, which means we have to schedule it on Facebook because if you were to use Hootsuite to schedule in the future, it needs to upload the photo and it uploads it to Facebook. It uploads it to a separate server. But at Facebook, it looks like, oh, gosh, well, this is not on our server. It's on this other thing. Well, -2 points for you. So that's why we want to schedule inside of Facebook. Post 1 to 5 times per day, it's obviously a high range. We're going to look at our data to see what's going on, but if it's an active day, if there's a major event going on, if there's, particular reason to, sure, we can post multiple times per day. And then listen and respond. We really, as we get the interaction on the platform, people, making comments, it's very important that we're in there and replying to those comments because that'll obviously facilitate the type of conversations we want to have with our target audience. Okay, that is Facebook. Nice. Learning these tools, really great. I want to just talk about ultimately the strategy behind these platforms. I threw in tactics, but it's really ultimately about being human. It sounds really, silly, but that's what people interact with. It's not a handle. It's not a Facebook page. It's a person. And if the more that we can tease that out, the more that we can let them see the personality behind the page, the students, right, that are actually doing the work, the more likely that people are going to interact with you because they have, various reasons. So, number one way of we're being human is a healthy diet. In this case, let's look at the food distribution here of what we should be eating. We have fruits and veggies, fat, protein. In this case, I like to say the fruits and veggies are kind of like the listen and highlight. This is the sort of most of what we should be posting is intent to get interaction, right? What can get the most interaction on the pages? So we were talking about like photos, things that are engaging, like this made you smile, like things that are relevant, but maybe even at times even at the edge of relevant because we want to just let them know that we're real people posting interesting things about our community and community at large. The protein is like information and informing them of something that's going on. And then the center is self-promotion. This is like the fat. This is not good for us at all. We can't do too much of it because it's like, Globesville is awesome today. It's not something that people are necessarily going to be jumping on. It's a detractor. Creating your diet. Informed, we can give tips, trainings, resources, like the interview stuff that we talked about, like going in for your first interview, or even if you're thinking about the expertise in this room right now, there are lots of high school kids literally making their decision right now about which college. So it'd be interesting making posts potentially about, hey, here are 3 things that we learned about, applying for college, or reasons that, we made our choice that helped us. You're not trying to like slim on NYT. You're trying to literally just give them tips and honestly think about that audience. We can create videos, of course, around that too, because I think we should always be integrating video content and posting video content when it comes up on Facebook. Listen highlights so we can talk with them and, thinking about this sort of 8-to-1, not really posting about ourselves, but we can highlight what's going on in the community. Going back to the soccer team, talking about them and their successes in the community, or even some of our NYIT, alumni are doing fantastic things. Why not every now and then throw a post their way and show what they're doing? Measure, watching what you eat, right? If we don't measure it, we can get unhealthy. So we're looking at some of those indicators of, making sure our total likes are increasing, making sure that our interactions talking about this are high. All right, go where they are. It's pretty obvious, right? Where's the conversation? We talked about this, right? So if I'm looking for childcare, I search for childcare, and here's a whole bunch of people talking about it, which is great. We can join the conversation, see who are the top people that we can follow and begin to interact with. We can look at Google searches. So google.com/trends will show you. So staying with the childcare theme, we can say, we're in a meeting and we're, saying, well, which one are people talking about? Do they call it, babysitter or childcare? We can actually say, in fact, people are searching for childcare more than babysitter at almost 2x, 3x the amount. And so we should be using, childcare in our comments or posts if it makes sense. Also really interesting to look at like related terms down there. You can see what other people are searching. This may look confusing at first. It's not the most pretty chart, but here's just a general distribution, and why I like to focus on this like golden triangle up here, the Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, because I believe it is if you're looking at it, good is on the y-axis and values on the y-axis, and time is on the x-axis. And so you're thinking about the best possible thing is if we're in the top left corner, it's good, and if it's down in the bottom right, it takes a lot of time to manage it, and the value is low, then it gets a little bit more dangerous investment. You think about Facebook, it's worth the investment. I think still as a top platform, and of course YouTube is really what we're focusing on. So that's good. But say Foursquare, it doesn't take much time, so we might as well make posts for Globesville around, but it's not about maintaining it. It really won't provide much value to us, I think, ultimately. Though there is one concept you can think about posting videos on a location. If we did shoot something, it would be great if we left that as a tip in the location. So, we're talking about, gym, field, buildings. When we're filming things, we can think of it as another way of doing that. Sorry about that. Finally, build relationships. And in this, we have this idea of trust, but it's not just like, a throwaway word. We literally can break it down by this. And this guy, Chris Brogan, has actually put a lot of the thinking in behind this being human concept and trust agents. And the tier of trust agents is, the power of being a real person that provides value to people. And the same thing that holds true for when you meet somebody and interact with them. If they're referring you to things that won't even help them, if they're posting things reliably, and they're can tell that they're a credible person, but also elements, and this is interesting, of intimacy, right? You want to know that there's a real person there on the interaction level. So it's the credibility, reliability, intimacy, then divided by self-interest, right? That's the facts from the first one. The self-grandeur doesn't sell well. People don't like it when that's pretty much all you're talking about. It turns them off. One more point, on the intimacy part, and I think it sounds weird, but it's really having people understand that there are awesome students behind this, and some of your stories as well, getting out there. We're doing it with the Local Minute, and we should be also thinking about how that relates to Facebook posting. Here's a quick example of some of these interactions that add a bit more of a personal touch. In this case, here's this presentation software that I'm literally using right now, and I posted this, really not happy with, at Prezi, right? Really not happy with the UI, blah, 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 blah. I'm being annoying, as I tend to be. Prezi, nice enough to respond here. Hey, we'd like to help you, and they point me toward this page. And then they even keep going with me and can inform me that you can enable shortcuts. And this is a wonderful example of how you can offer this idea of like customer service through Twitter, how we can be interacting and helping people. Same thing, case with JetBlue. These guys are awesome. I was like waiting on the tarmac, which you tend to do a lot on airplanes, and I was like, hey, I love you, but we're stuck. JetBlue literally responds, hey, sorry for the delay. We're working to get you updates. Feel free to check back. So, it takes a lot to do this level, but it's, this part about being human, that they're there, and like, this is not, there's obviously a person writing this. This is not automatic. This is not scheduled posting. It really takes that constant attention. Talk about trust agents. The thank you economy is fantastic because it just talks about this one concept of just really thank every single person that you possibly can for joining us, interacting with us. That sort of gratitude is contagious, and it makes people feel appreciated. And so as far as you can go to thank people is actually even like a strategy. So, thanking people for following us every single week on Twitter, and new people, welcoming them in. It's all part of it. And closes a really great story about delivering happiness is a really great story about Zappos, the shoe company, and how amazing their customer service is really as their big selling point. And that's really what Amazon bought when they bought them. They were buying this concept of fantastic customer service. And there's stories about how you can, kind of call them up and they'll even help you like find a pizza. Like they'll really go above and beyond and deliver like wow things. All right, so I'm going to stop there and maybe save some more tactics for another day. Hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you all shortly. Thanks. Take care.